to another episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns.
That's right, everybody. Welcome to another live football episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns. As always, it's your guy, Bully Rye. And next to me is the guy that, left the studio while we were doing the intro to the show. So I got to come back on the show all by myself as Banker Bill. Bill, what's up, bud?
What's up, man? It's Football Wednesday. Don't ever hit the button and go, what does this do? Right as you're starting the show.
I thought it was intentional.
Don't hit the red button.
I was legit thought he's just trying to do it as a joke on me, I'm going to do the show by myself.
It was funny, but don't hit the red button. Never hit the red button.
You never hit the red button.
No.
The red button's always something that launches something into space or fires a missile when you're not expecting to do it or not trying to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't cut the red wire. Don't
so
push
whoops.
the red button.
Whoops.
It says do not touch. Probably the general rule is do not touch that button.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another live football episode. I was late letting everybody know about it, but you should know by now that we go live on Wednesdays, whether it's on Facebook.com/Tapouts and Touchdowns, YouTube at Tapouts and Touchdowns, or Instagram at Ryan Frick Comedy. As of right now, nobody's watching with us, so we might have a pretty quiet show, although it is live. So you can actually look at the stream. Bill should be looking very, very different this week, not like he's underwater. Made some adjustments behind the scenes, and Bill looks like me. In fairness, I recorded an episode of the Cat Cave earlier tonight, and Shannon looked pretty decent. So maybe on the bright side of all this, when everybody didn't have internet for a couple days during this Hurricane Helene recovery, maybe they were able to come in and clean up some internet connections, and maybe everybody in the upstate of South Carolina and surrounding areas has better internet.
Don't believe
Who knows? Anyway.
Rumors.
Listen, a lot of stuff happened in football. If you're joining the show, I got a couple viewers on Facebook and one on YouTube. Make sure you leave a comment wherever you're watching the show to join the conversation. But listen, a pretty fun week in football. Some good, some bad. So let's go ahead and get into Homer's Corner because we got some bad stuff to talk about. I'll go ahead and start us off. The Detroit Lions beat the ever-loving crap out of the Dallas Cowboys this past weekend. Unfortunately, however, they lost star defensive end Aiden Hutchinson to a broken tibia and fibula. If you haven't seen the injury and you happen to be squeamish, I wouldn't go out and find it. I was actually live at the Carolina Panthers Atlanta Falcons game in person. I guess I could talk about this for a little second. It was a club level seating. So you could leave your seats and go inside where there's air conditioned bars and there's a Bohanglace in there and there's a team store, all air conditioned. So as hot as it was, we were able to go inside and relax and cool off until the game started. But I did not get to see the injury live. Somebody sent it to me and it's disappointing. He was on pace to at least compete to break the single season sack record for the Detroit Lions. Some moron wrote an article that the Lions Super Bowl hopes are now finished with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. But there's been some trades made in the NFL this week that we're going to get to here in a minute. And the trade deadline is not come and gone yet. So there is plenty of time for the Detroit Lions to make some moves to perhaps try to replace Aiden Hutchinson for the time being. But super sad for this kid to go down. Aaron sent it to me is what he's saying in the comments. Aaron Thompson sent it to me. Aaron, if you will. So, yeah, it's really upsetting. The kid's everything you've seen of this kid. He's a good guy. He's a leader. He was getting after it with one of his offensive linemen in the pregame warmups. He's a height guy. I just hope that this team can recover and continue to play well. Whether or not the Lions go out and get a guy like Chase Young or Max Crosby or somebody out there, I think this is the time that you go out and make a splash and try to get something to alleviate some of that pressure, because Aiden Hutchinson was on another level this year before the injury. So speedy recovery, prayers up. He's already had surgery this week. They're saying that he should be ready to go in 2025. But with that kind of injury, I believe it was that kind of injury that took Alex Smith out. and Alex Smith's leg got infected. He almost lost it. So prayers go out to Aiden Hutchinson for a speedy recovery as he looks to come back in 2025. Bill, you have a similar situation at your college that you root for. So why don't you go ahead and get into your Homer's Corner today?
Unfortunately, the Florida Gators, while playing a pretty tough Tennessee team and doing well against them, I believe they were up 10-0. Graham Mertz goes down, starting quarterback for the Florida Gators. I don't know if you knew this, Ryan. He was actually leading college football in completion percentage until he went down. 76.6% he was completing on the year, which is phenomenal. Obviously above 3 out of 4. So he had been having a pretty good season, and they were up 10-0 against Tennessee, ended up losing that game in overtime, 23-17. But yeah, really sad for Graham Mertz. That actually ends his college career, which kind of a bummer. I mean, we're 6 games in. He's probably not going to get a medical waiver this season. He's already played beyond, what we probably would consider where they are allowed to or would normally do a medical waiver. So that's probably going to be the end of his career. I imagine he will go into the draft. I'm not sure I see him getting drafted. He was good. He bypassed the draft last year to come back for a senior season at Florida. Transferred from Wisconsin 2 years ago. I mean, he's been pretty good. So just sad to see him go down. On the positive side, I guess that gives an opportunity to have true freshman DJ Lagway, the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school last season. So we'll see a whole lot more of him. Unfortunately, against Tennessee, kind of didn't have that great of a game. Did have a nice throw. I don't know if you saw the last throw at the end of the game, Ryan, with the less than 30 seconds to play on a 3rd and 17. Hit, I think his name is Chimere Dike. I don't know how to say his first name. It's like Chimere. Yeah. Interesting first name. Hits him for a touchdown. It looked good on that play. So we'll get to see a whole lot more of him as we go through the slaughterhouse of a schedule we have for the remainder of the season. But sad for Graham Mertz.
Yeah, I was the one watching your game. You were out doing like a hayride or something. I don't know. David Dixon in the chat. What's up, David? Glad to have you here.
I have to admit, Ryan, even when I came home, I did not turn on the Florida game. I felt like I'm just going to give him bad juju. They were in the game. Like, this is going to be bad karma for them. I'm just going to let it play out. Personally, I would have gone for 2. Billy Napier, I think you failed us there, pal.
Let's get into it, because the next thing we're going to talk about is college football and all the thrilling games that we had. And let's start off with Florida, Tennessee, because
I'm just glad they're on the docket. Like they actually played well enough to actually talk about them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Florida lined up to go for 2, had like a trick formation out to go for 2, and Tennessee calls a timeout. Napier saw that they took the timeout and elected to go for 1 and go to overtime. And overtime did not bode well. The University of Florida, they took a penalty, then a big sack on first and 15. They were playing from behind and just didn't have a shot in overtime. But that game was closer than a lot of people thought it was. Florida was up 10-0 at one point in that game, so Tennessee has to come back. If Tennessee wins this game handedly, they're probably still in the top 10 ahead of their matchup against Alabama this weekend. And speaking of Alabama, man, I'll tell you what, they lose to Vanderbilt 2 weeks ago. We think they're going to come out angry, and they are going to take it out on South Carolina. And boy, didn't they. South Carolina had so many chances to win this game. They were down 14-0, 2 minutes left to go in this game. And as I'm talking about South Carolina, that's where comments come in. Mama Frick in the house. Glad to see you, Mom. And will South Carolina ever figure it out and win those tough games? I doubt it. Rough being a Gamecock fan for 40 years. Listen, I'll go ahead and say it right now. South Carolina had some self-inflicted wounds in this game. A couple of phantom calls in this game. But at the end of the day, South Carolina is 3-3. Preseason, if you had thought at this point of the season we would be 3-3, then we are on pace to where everybody expected us to be. The problem is that we are 3-3 with a chance to be 5-1, considering we, for all intents and purposes, should have beaten LSU. And again, 14-0 with 2 minutes left to go in the first half. You score 12 unanswered points. You get a touchdown. You force a safety. And then you after you get the safety, you turn the ball over, only to turn it back over to kick the field goal and go into overtime. You take a lead into the fourth quarter. And then the fourth quarter itself took 10 years off of South Carolina fans' lives. I mean, you have a touchdown with Lenora Sellers to Nick Harbor. You finally get a Nick Harbor touchdown, toe tap in the end zone. They missed the 2-point conversion to tie it. Then they recover the onside kick, only to, on first down, have a ball tipped and an offensive lineman catches the ball instead of knocking it down, and it costs you about 10 to 20 seconds off of that clock. to where a redshirt freshman, Lenore Sell, was just chunking the ball up and just didn't have a good throw. Nick Harbor wasn't on the route looking for the ball, turns it over. Alabama wins by 2, but a phenomenal game, regardless of the outcome. Alabama, I'm not sure how good they are, or maybe just Vanderbilt and South Carolina are both really good and up to play with those big teams in the SEC. But when it comes to South, I know Bill's gonna make his noises in his faces and all this stuff, which is fair. But preseason, South Carolina fans thought that we could very easily be 2-4 at this point. 3-3 was best case scenario. We are. But the fact of the matter is, South Carolina at 3-3 with chances to be 5-1, all of a sudden South Carolina fans are calling this a disappointment. It's not. 3-3 was good preseason. I told Bill we were going to be 7-5 this year as a floor, and he laughed at me. And now Bill is on point with, okay, maybe they do go 7-5, because there's not a game on the rest. There's not a game on the schedule that isn't a winnable game for South Carolina.
Whoa. I have to stop you there.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
There's not a game on the schedule that isn't a winnable game. All right, now here's my issue.
Said, yeah.
Here's my issue, and I like David Dixon's comment. You got to put that up there. My issue with South Carolina is we're not sure who they are yet.
That's the problem. Yeah,
they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type team. We thought, okay, wait, they played LSU. They surprised us against Kentucky.
They beat LSU.
Nobody expected that, right?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah,
they surprised us against Kentucky.
Yep.
For all intents and purposes, yes, they beat LSU. I'm sorry. I'm still going to give you a win on that one. I know you're a homer and you'll say that, but I agree with you. As a non-homer, I think you guys got hosed out of that game. Yep. Clobber Akron, you didn't show up against Ole Miss.
Didn't show up against Ole Miss.
Terrible.
Worst game of the season.
That's your Hyde game. Is that your Jekyll game? Whatever. That's the bad game. And of course, you played really well against Alabama, but we don't know what Alabama is right now, because they go and beat Georgia, and then they lose to Vanderbilt, which that doesn't make much sense. So we don't know where Alabama's at. We don't know where.
And then
their
they
heads
almost
are at.
lose to us. Yeah.
And then but see, of course, we don't know if that means South Carolina's good, and we don't know if Alabama's bad. Moving forward, you've got Oklahoma on the road. I will call that a winnable game because they're not as good as Alabama. But you have to play your best game again.
Yeah. Well, no.
Hang on. Let's continue.
Hold on. I want to talk about Oklahoma for just a second.
Sure.
I said preseason that we were going to beat Oklahoma on the road. Everybody called me crazy. Oklahoma just got blown out by Texas.
Yes.
People like to forget about the fact
Texas
that
is fantastic.
No, Texas is great. But you also have to take into consideration that Oklahoma is coached by a defensive-minded coach. Those offenses tend to struggle. And in the offseason, they lost their entire offensive line and their starting quarterback from 2023 into the transfer portal. This is an entirely new offense. South Carolina's strength is their defense, and which is why I said even preseason that I was not worried about Oklahoma, that we were going to beat Oklahoma even before what we saw against Old Dominion. I thought we'd beat Oklahoma on the road. All right, sorry, please continue.
No, that's fair. I like the analysis, but the reality is I think what I said stands. Oklahoma is still a decent team. They still have athletes on that roster. You are on the road. You're in Norman. You have to play your best game. You have to bring the Alabama team that played this week to beat Oklahoma on the road.
Yep.
Then you go to Texas A&M, or then you have Texas A&M visit you. You're losing that game. Texas A&M is on a roll.
What?
Texas A&M is on a roll, man.
Who have they beaten?
Huh? Wait.
Who have they beaten?
Let's go.
They beat Missouri.
We can do this. It's as fast as my computer will take you. They're 5-1. They lost to Notre Dame 23-13. They beat McNeese, Florida, Bowling Green, Arkansas, and Missouri. And Arkansas was pretty good at the time.
Arkansas beat Tennessee, but that's the only team they beat. Who did they beat?
Yeah.
So they lost to Notre Dame.
And they clobbered Missouri. They knocked
they
Missouri
beat the crap out of Missouri.
From relevancy.
That's the problem. Is they beat Missouri, but Missouri didn't beat anybody before they played A&M.
They're going to go to Mississippi State and win that game. That's this week.
Mississippi State. Again,
you've got to buy. Then they're going to play LSU at home, and they're going to win that game.
They won't beat LSU.
I think they will. I think they will. Right. And I think you're probably going to lose to them. Well, I'm just going to keep going. Then you're on the road at Vanderbilt, who just beat Alabama.
That's the game that I'm worried about.
That's
the game that I'm worried about. We're at
then
Vanderbilt.
You play Missouri at home, and Missouri is a Jekyll and Hyde team. We don't know what we're getting out of them. They were very good last year, and the team's similar. Then you play Wofford. Well, you get a W there. That's a W. Yeah. And then you play Clemson at Clemson. And I know what David just said, but I'm not sure you win that game. So you might win 2 on the way out. That'll make you bowl eligible. That won't make you bowl. Yeah. I really think you got 2, 3 if you're good. 3, you
I
get
say
into
we
a
win
bowl.
4. I think we got
No.
4 of them.
I don't feel 4. Who are you beating? You're beating
Oklahoma,
okay, 1.
Oklahoma, Missouri, Wofford, and either A&M or Clemson.
No.
Yes.
No. Not as inconsistent as South Carolina's been. No.
All right.
One of those times, one of those good games you're going to have that you really need to win, you're going to have the Ole Miss team show up. And it looked like you guys haven't played football before.
That'll be against Vanderbilt.
I mean, that same team played Old Dominion. The Old Dominion's they're just that much better. There's much better
Old
horses in South Carolina
Dominion,
stable.
There were 2 big plays that would have led to touchdowns in Old Dominion that were
You survived
against
that game.
boneheaded plays.
That
We
was
did
a
survive that
luck
game.
play. Like that was a luck out. Like I said, it's a Jekyll and Hyde team right now, and I just don't think they have the consistency to win 4 games down the stretch, 3 games down the stretch. I don't feel it.
Well, you told me Saturday when I talked
I like
to you
the
about
team.
It.
No, I like the team. They're a good team when they play, but they are too inconsistent for me to feel good about them going down the stretch because of how hard this schedule became with Vandy being decent.
When we beat Oklahoma this weekend, everybody's mind's going to change.
We'll find out.
Okay.
Again, you have to bring the A game, and we'll see if they're able to. That's what I'm saying. If they can bring the A game every week, then yes, they win 4, maybe 5 games on the way out. But
I'm
they
with
don't
Trey
do
Tolles.
that every week.
I think we're going to surprise people against Texas A&M at night in Williams-Brice.
I
Game
really
at
like
home.
that Texas A&M team.
Well, speaking of all the teams that South Carolina played and lost to, let's talk about some more of these games from Saturday that were really fun to watch. LSU goes to overtime against Ole Miss and wins that game in overtime with a walk-off touchdown. Do you get to catching the highlights of this game? Because I mean, again,
no,
one of those SEC matchups that like you don't know who's going to win. It was sort of back and forth. You didn't know who's going to take this game over, and nobody really did, which is why this game went to overtime. Another fun game out of the SEC. Kansas State and Colorado became a back and forth game, but Colorado lost their 4 top receivers in this game, including Travis Hunter to injury.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State scores a touchdown late to go over Colorado. We talked about Tennessee, Florida. Penn State, they were down big to Southern Cal, and they're able to come back and beat Southern Cal on the road in a Big Ten matchup, which is hard to say.
I know.
Again, talked about Alabama, South Carolina. What might have been the game of the year so far was Ohio State on the road at Oregon, a top 5 matchup.
Yeah.
And Oregon's head coach makes a call where he puts 12 men on defense to force Ohio State to run a play. And I mean, listen, they asked him about it post game, and he cracks a smile, but he never actually says anything about it. It forces Ohio State to burn some time. They get a penalty because it's basically a free play. They get a penalty. Ohio State gets the ball back. Eventually, they run out of time as Ohio State's quarterback is scrambling, trying to slide down with time left in order to spike the ball to attempt a field goal. But by the time he got down, the clock had run out and the game was over. Oregon survives with a 1-point victory over Ohio State. I think this isn't the last time we've seen these two teams play, Bill.
Maybe not against each other, but yeah, I mean, they're both going to be in the playoff. Okay, that's going to be 2 teams that are going to be in the playoff. I want to ask you about what the coach is it Lanning that the coaches up there in Oregon. Do you think this is going to cause a rule change? So
yes,
explaining it a little bit better. You kind of touched on it, but he put 12 men on the field. It caused a play that was a penalty, and he knew it was going to be a penalty, but he basically added another player in coverage so that it would be harder for Ohio State to move the ball, Will Howard to complete a pass. That took 4 seconds off the clock, and it was a penalty, only a 5-yard penalty for that. And Will Howard couldn't complete a pass because of the amount of coverage they had because they had extra men on the field. 4 seconds would have won, at least given Ohio State the opportunity to kick a field goal at the end when Will Howard scrambled. And it would have been, I think he scrambled to the 29. So it would have been a, 30.
Pretty long field goal.
I mean, 48 yarder. So it would have been a chance. Yeah. There's a chance. So I just wonder if, Volley Polly here. I just wonder if I think that's going to create a rule change. And I wonder what the change is going to be like. What do you do at that point? Do you put the time back on the clock? I don't think so. So do you give like the offense an untimed down when that happens? Like if a defensive penalty like that causes a situation where the play runs, but
for a change, I'm glad I'm not one of the decision makers.
I know that one's really odd because it's like I said, it makes it harder on the offense. So the offense is going to have a hard time completing a pass against extra coverage.
Yeah,
and it's a 5-yard play. So I don't know that one really scares me. When I heard that he did it on purpose, I went, man, that's really smart, except that's really dumb because now we're going to have to deal with this.
There might be some sort of like, if it's intentional, like an unsportsmanlike conduct call against
Yeah,
it.
it's 15.
Like if
15
all
if
of a
it's
sudden,
late or something.
yeah, if he lines up with 12 in cup, like 12 on the field, but if like within a certain time frame on the play clock, if he runs somebody out there with like within 15 seconds,
Right.
it's an unsportsmanlike conduct.
I like that.
So it gives him 15 yards, maybe. But I don't know. Something else big to come out of college football last weekend is a story for the ages. I don't know how long it will last, but for the first time since 1960, that's 27 years before I was born, two of the armed forces are in the AP top 25 as Army and Navy are both currently ranked in the top 25 ahead of SEC teams like Florida, Vanderbilt, who owns Alabama,
yeah,
South Carolina,
yeah,
and so many more.
Oklahoma's no longer in the top 25.
Bill, what are your thoughts on the fact that you both get? I mean, this is going to set up for a really fun Army Navy game at the end of the year if they can both stay ranked. I mean, at this rate, I mean, technically, they're if they go undefeated into their game against each other, you will have an undefeated either Army or Navy and an 11-1 Army and Navy. I believe Navy is in the All American Conference.
Yeah.
Army is in the
American
AAC, American Athletic Conference. So both of these teams could win their conference. Do you see a scenario where Army and Navy go to the end of the year at 12-0 and 11-1, win their conferences?
No.
And Army and Navy make the playoff?
No.
No?
No, because Army plays Notre Dame this season.
They'll beat Notre Dame.
Oh, oh my goodness. You just ruined your Oklahoma pick.
They're going to beat Notre Dame.
Oh, stop it.
I think
Am I excited about it? Yes.
Hold on.
Actually, I'm sorry. Both teams. I don't know what Notre Dame's like. Let's play the armed forces. They're playing both. Yeah, they're both.
You're talking about the same Notre Dame that lost to Northern Illinois.
Really? We're actually going to act like Army or Navy is as good as Notre Dame? We're really going to do that?
No, but I'm rooting for it to happen.
Sure. That's why I said I'm excited about it. It's cool. We're talking about it right now, and I like the idea of talking about it. I mean, they're both undefeated. I mean, Army's 6-0 already. They're already bowl eligible. That's cool. So I hope they win as many games as they possibly can going down the stretch, but I don't think either one of them beat Notre Dame.
Well, you got to think too, like the trend. Hey, Andy's over in the Instagram chat. What's up, Andy?
Hey, what's up, Andy?
You got to think too. There's no transfer portal in the armed forces. They can't just leave the Army because they want to go play football. Ohio State. Impressive. That's not how it works.
It's exactly right. It's impressive. Like these guys have committed to their country and they play football until they start their service. And right now, these guys are obviously good football players in high school somewhere, and they decided to go to the armed services instead, and they're playing good football right now. So good for them. I mean, I like it. I think it's neat that they're both in the top 25.
Volley Polly says Army beating Irish. Wrong again, Ryan. Listen, my grandfather fought in the Battle of Midway in World War II, so I'll root for Navy. Going forward, I mean, listen, I'm not going to root against Army. Like, you can't root against the military. My dad was in the Air Force. I don't see Air Force anywhere, but
I don't have a dog in the fight.
South Carolina's not going to make the playoff. So if there's somebody that I'm rooting for, it's Army and Navy to go and at least make the playoff, because it'd be really fun if one or both of those teams currently undefeated in the top 25 make the playoff. That'd be fun to watch.
Air Force, Ryan? Remember Air Force, the last undefeated team in college football last season? Was it Air Force?
Yes.
I think it was Air Force, right? I think they were like 7-0. They were 7-0, and then they lost. They are 1-5 this season. So the Air Force has been grounded in college football this year.
Oh, look at you. Stop it.
That was a zinger.
That was a zinger. But Bill, there's one big game in college football this weekend as Georgia goes on the road to play Texas. We're going to pick that game at Podcast Pick'ems at the end of the show. Are there any other games in college football that you're looking forward to this weekend? I mean, you got a couple of ranked versus ranked matchups, but it seems like a lot of, I mean, obviously I'm looking forward to South Carolina, Oklahoma for personal reasons. But like, you got Miami, Louisville, Auburn, Missouri,
Michigan at Illinois.
Yeah, that's the big game.
I want
out
to
of the
see if
SEC.
Illinois is for real. That
Yeah.
one, yeah, I want to see that game. That one is. I like to point out the
it's-
times that they're on. Unfortunately, they're on.
3:30.
It's on at the same time
It's
as the Alabama
3:30 on
Tennessee game.
Yeah, it's 3:30 on CBS. The old SEC lock time over with Gary Danielson's moronic self.
And another game I'll probably pay attention to, Ryan, 7:30, UCF at Iowa State. Iowa State in the top 10, undefeated. I have not paid attention to that team at all. I'd like to see them
in
play.
there.
Yeah, I'd like to see them play. And UCF's not terrible. They look terrible against Florida, but they're not a bad team. So I think I'm going to watch that game.
Iowa State had to come from behind to beat in-state rival Iowa as well. And then, volleyball, he said Vols and Tide, Alabama going to Tennessee. We're going to pick that game as well. So I can't wait to watch that. When you talk about other SEC matchups, number 14 Texas A&M on the road at Mississippi State, LSU on the road at Arkansas, a team that knocked off Tennessee a couple weeks ago. Get to see if they can knock off LSU at home. Kentucky, Florida is a pretty interesting game with DJ Lagway starting. Kentucky coming in 3-3 along with Florida after losing to Vanderbilt themselves. Vanderbilt was able to avoid the hangover game that South Carolina could not back in 2010 when they lost to Alabama, or they beat Alabama and then lost to Kentucky the next week. Vanderbilt did not fall into that trap, and they were able to beat Kentucky. Utah falls out of the top 25 after getting knocked off last week and now sit at 4-2, taking on TCU. Help me out. The name of the quarterback for Utah, Cam Rising. Is now out for the year once again and is requiring another medical red shirt to go back to Utah next year. We'll see what happens there, but some big games to watch.
He missed most of the beginning of this season too.
Yeah.
That's different than the Graham Mertz injury. That's why you might get that. Yeah.
I just think at some point you just got to decide to hang it up.
Zach Wilson's little brother's now the quarterback there, so that'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm. You've got some fun football to watch in college football, namely the ranked versus ranked matchups, and then obviously Georgia, Texas. You're probably going to get in front of a TV and watch that game.
That's a big one.
Let's get over to NFL talk because some news broke this week. I did not let you know we're going to talk about some of this on the show, but let's start off with after the firing of Robert Saleh last week in the New York Jets. The Jets go and lose their next game on, I believe it was Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. And on Tuesday this week, made the move that everybody expected to happen when Aaron Rodgers officially signed with the Jets before last season. And the Jets go out and trade for Davante Adams, who has been dealing with quote unquote hamstring injury out in Vegas for the last 3 weeks. Yeah. I feel like Chris Farley in that skit, like, I don't smell good. I don't, that whole thing. I personally don't believe that this is going to make a difference. I think Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers have a good rapport. They made magic in Green Bay, but Aaron Rodgers has not thrown for 300 yards in 3 years. Davante Adams has not played a great game since being traded away from Green Bay. Like, he's had a couple of decent games, but he's not the same Davante Adams in his prime that he was in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers has gotten everything he wanted in New York. Robert Saleh is gone. They signed Dalvin Cook that didn't work out. They got Allen Lazard, and now they got Davante Adams. Bill, does this make a difference, or are the Jets going to continue to fall like I expect them to?
No, doesn't. Stop. He's done. Let's put a fork in him. Davante Adams can be that fork. All right. Let's let him get the receiver that made him decent the last 10 years. I don't want to say that. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, but obviously he and Davante Adams had some good hook. He was in his time, right? But he's always been a little bit enigmatic, to put it. Well, I guess that's it's a good word. He's a little bit of mystery, right? He's a weird guy. Discount double check action. He's just a weird guy.
Double check. I missed the discount double check. Yeah.
And so he's a strange guy, and he hasn't had it, like you said, he hasn't had a 300-yard season. Granted, he was injured the entire season last year, but he hasn't had a 300-yard game in 3 years. He's 40 years old, and I'm not really expecting much from him at all this year. I kind of did. I'm like, let's see what we get after the Achilles injury and all that stuff. I was like, well, maybe he'll go back and be decent. He's had Mike Williams, Pro Bowl level wide receiver, Garrett
He'll be
Wilson.
gone soon.
Garrett
Yeah.
Wilson is fantastic. Like, that guy's great. He's had Alan Lazard. He had a rapport with him in Green Bay as well, and he was never fantastic, but at least he knew the guy. It's just he's not good. He's just not good. And you watch him throw, he's throwing off his back foot. He's flinging it. He acts like he's just like the last interception against Buffalo was not a good throw. It wasn't a good
Well,
throw.
not only
Mike Williams darn near killed himself trying to get to the ball, and it got picked off anyway.
and Mike Williams slipped. And I'll tell you what, Aaron Rodgers throws anybody and everybody under the bus instead of having accountability.
Yes.
That's the reason why Devontae Adams got traded for, and it's the reason why Mike Williams will be on a different team before the trade deadline, because he all but like put a bow and arrow in the chest of Mike Williams after that game. Blamed the kicker. Like, I'm surprised they haven't gone out and signed a new kicker yet, to be completely honest.
It's
like,
awful. It's awful.
Yeah.
Look, the Jets haven't been in the playoffs since 2010. They haven't won the division since 2003. And you know they haven't had a 4,000-yard passer. Pick the year, Ryan, that the last time the New York Jets had a 4,000-yard passer.
I couldn't tell you. Chad Pennington, maybe? I don't know.
Pick the decade.
2000s?
1967 was the last time the Jets had a 4,000-yard passer.
Was that Joe Namath?
I think it was Joe Namath. I don't know. They put those graphics up on the TV this week, and I memorized them. I don't know why, but 1967. They're not going to have one this year.
Real quick, over on Instagram, 323 College Shame Day says Rodgers is the quintessential Favre. Chuck it down the field and hope for the best. Yeah, I mean, listen, when the Jets signed Aaron Rodgers last season, I said, I don't care who's going to be playing quarterback. The Jets are still going to be terrible. Rodgers goes down. And if Rodgers was healthy, no. I said, it doesn't matter. When Rodgers plays this season, they're not going to be good. And so far, I've been proven right about that. So, Devontae Adams, I think Volley Polly said it, short-term win for the Jets. Long-term, it's not going to make a difference. You still got Buffalo. Miami's going to be okay when Tua comes back. I can't say much about the Patriots outside of the fact Drake may look good, albeit in a loss last week. But yeah, it's still put a fork in the Jets. Aaron Rodgers. What's funny is that Devontae Adams fought his way to New York to play with Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers won't be playing next year. So he's right back in the same situation as he was in Vegas.
And they have no option. No option.
Yeah. Let's move on here, because the next Devontae Adams was traded, and Amari Cooper was like, hey, I don't want to be here either. And so the Browns trade Amari Cooper to the Buffalo Bills for like a third rounder and a pick swap of 6th and 7th. Jerry Jones traded away Amari Cooper to the Cleveland Browns for a 4th or a 5th round pick. And the Browns 2 or 3 years later were able to flip that and get a better value for him. Does Amari Cooper make an immediate difference for the Buffalo Bills? Do the Buffalo Bills become that much better with Amari Cooper?
I think so. I think they're one of their biggest weaknesses, and I think it's shown up the last 3 weeks. They played pretty well against the Jets. The Jets have a really good defense. 2 weeks before that, Josh Allen was pretty bad. And I think that's because he doesn't have fantastic or really even good receivers on that team right now. I mean, with Mac Hollins, who is a reject from the Dolphins, he's one of their top options right now. That's not good. Amari Cooper is still I would say an above average wide receiver. We don't even know where he's at right now because Watson's been so bad this season. But I would imagine Josh Allen throwing Amari Cooper is going to be a really nice thing right now. I think that's going to make them better. I think they have a better wide receiver core with him in the room. So while I'm as a Dolphins fan, I don't like seeing that because I think Amari Cooper's still pretty decent. But yeah, I think the Bills made a good move right there.
That's Yannick. What's up, Yannick's over in the Instagram chat saying good Jet is a massive question mark. I'm guessing he's talking about with Aaron Rodgers. College Shame Day comes back and says, can't wait for the Browns to have the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and the Bills are too inconsistent.
It's amazing how quickly the Browns can turn over the number 1 pick. Like, that's so strange.
Well,
and they've had such great players on that team.
There was a rumor going around recently, and I there's obviously no truth to it, but there was a rumor. Yannick comes back. Bills still win with that division by default. Going to be between them and the Jets. The Dolphins would like a word when Tua Tagovailoa comes back. But the rumor with the Browns was that the cap hit for Deshaun Watson is so big that they would have to trade if they wanted to somehow alleviate some of that pressure. they would need to trade Deshaun Watson to a team that's got a bunch of cap space, along with their own first round pick, just so that they could dump Deshaun Watson, so that whoever would trade for him could get a first round pick and then cut Watson at the end of the day. Like, so the Browns would trade Deshaun Watson and the number one just so that they can get rid of Deshaun Watson in his contract.
It's just,
I just don't get how you listen. I talk every week on the Cat Cave and on this show how David Tepper is the worst owner in sports. Okay, we're gonna get to the Dallas Cowboys in a second because Jerry Jones is making a case.
Speaking of owners,
no, that's a great story we're gonna get to here in a second. But like, how does the owner of the Cleveland Browns allow this to happen? Like, they are just such, oh my God, they're just such a crap show. And I also saw a video that's floating around. I need to send it to you if I haven't already. It's like the what if dream. And it's a Cleveland Brown fan getting up, waking up to his alarm clock, hitting his alarm clock. And it's like Groundhog Day, right? Where there's a radio guy on the ham radio. And he's talking about how, the Browns are 4-1 going into Baltimore this weekend. Baker Mayfield having a resurgence. Aren't you glad that we gave Baker Mayfield a second chance? Can you believe that time that we thought we were going to go sign Deshaun Watson? I'm so glad we made this move. And it goes where the actual alarm clock goes off and he's back to reality, that they're stuck with Deshaun Watson, that Baker Mayfield's killing it in Tampa Bay, and that there's nothing they can do. They're just stuck in this impending hell that is Cleveland Browns purgatory.
I have a saying, Ryan, that I like to say, and it's about the Browns, but I always say, and I said it when they used the number 1 overall pick on Baker Mayfield, when it seemed like there were better options. Like, granted, Baker Mayfield's got a little bit of resurgence now, but obviously right away it didn't look like a very good pick. But when that happened, I said the Browns are going to Brown, and they continue to do so.
I mean, everybody, listen, you could talk about the Browns and if they're ever going to make it to the playoffs and all that stuff ever again. Everybody in this country, at least with a healthy digestive system, takes the Browns to the Super Bowl on a daily basis.
All the time.
And that is the only way that the Browns are ever going to get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Let's talk real quick. The last other bit of news, Russell Wilson's getting first team reps in Pittsburgh. They are really toying with the idea of him starting this weekend. Justin Fields has the Steelers 4-2. Is it, let's call it just smart or dumb if you start Russell Wilson this weekend?
I'm not going to ever call Mike Tomlin dumb, but I would call that a questionable move. However, when the season started, Russell Wilson was supposed to be the starter of that team, right? And usually a lot of coaches will say, hey, an injury doesn't make you lose the spot on the depth chart. In this case, it probably should. Because I'm not sure we'll get anything out of Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I'm curious. Oh, Mama Frick coming in with some stats, Bill. Ready for this? It was Johnny Unitas who passed for 3,099 yards in 1960, and Joe Namath passed for over 4,000 in 1967.
It was Namath. Good old wobbly knees himself.
Look, Mama Frick coming in with the clutch. I would say I get my sports stuff from my dad, but my mom coming in with it. Yeah, listen,
that's good stuff.
When it comes to Russell Wilson and the Steelers, I'll tell you right now, if he comes in and he stinks it up, Justin Fields is going to win that job back.
Oh, yeah.
And if you talk about a team that needs receivers, Mike Williams is on the block. I think Pittsburgh should go make a move and try to get Mike Williams from New York. I mean, what's it going to hurt? You got George Pickens, and I don't know anybody else on that roster with Deontay Johnson now in Carolina.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see if Russell Wilson actually starts this weekend. Next up in the NFL, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but rumors have it that Nick Chubb was almost ready to go last week for the Cleveland Browns, speaking of the Browns, and he is slated to make his return from his knee injury last season. Bill, what are your expectations if Nick Chubb is able to get back into action this week?
I thought when we saw the knee injury, his career was over.
Same. It felt like the Marcus Lattimore injury.
It looked gruesome. So I'm not exactly sure what we're going to get from him, but he's had knee injuries before, and he's still a monster. So I won't put anything past this guy. Do I have faith in him getting it fixed? Yes. I think Nick Chubb's going to be a good running back when he comes back.
I agree completely. I think I don't think they're gonna ease him into it, but I think he's going to be fine. You don't start him in your fantasy football team the first week he comes back. But the Browns are also really bad. And they just got rid of their number one wide receiver.
They're also really bad.
Deshaun Watson can't run. He can't pass. And so I think teams are going to expect the run to come. So temper expectations, not because Nick Chubb is not going to be as good, but because the Cleveland Browns are just that bad. And I don't know why I find joy in that. There's a guy that I know that roots for Cleveland and probably has something to do with it. Might have something to do with the fact that so many people in Charleston are from the state of Ohio and they try to turn Ohio or Charleston into South Ohio. I don't know, but I'm not upset that the Browns are this bad and never looking to get any better. But I digress. The other big news in the NFL has to do with the Dallas Cowboys. It's not really news that the Dallas Cowboys are bad. They lost 47-9 to my Detroit Lions this past weekend, albeit with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. And I heard the Lions, because again, I was at the Panthers game. I heard the Lions were running trick plays in the second half, already up big. Listen, there were some.
Wait. Do you know why they were running trick plays?
Was it the offensive lineman that they were trying to get to? Yeah, they deserve it. Listen,
it's so good though. It's so good. I know your offensive coordinator is a young guy, but what a chip he had on his shoulder as a young guy. He's so pissed that he tried twice to get offensive lineman in the end zone. I loved it. That was great.
So like my problem was I had somebody legitimately come to me, or not just come to me, but come in general and say that Aiden Hutchinson getting hurt was karma for the Lions running up the score on the Cowboys. I'm like, no, the Cowboys had this coming. If it wasn't for that bullcrap Cowboys game, the Lions would have hosted the NFC Championship game, and I think they play in the Super Bowl last year.
I think they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we've been on record saying this multiple times. So they wanted to make it a point against Dallas. I think I heard Colin Cowherd on the radio say today that the Lions treated this like a playoff game, and the Cowboys just treated it like another game. I believe the Cowboys are sitting at 2-4 right now. If not one, they're not 1-5. They won 2 games. They had a contract dispute with CeeDee Lamb in the offseason. They paid CeeDee Lamb. They extended Dak Prescott and made him the highest paid player in NFL history. But now the question comes, is it time to just blow up the Dallas Cowboys and start all over again? The Dallas Cowboys flagship radio station has a show that Jerry Jones calls in and talks on every Tuesday. And they tried to pose some questions, and I don't know what my rights are to that audio. So I'm not going to air it here in case that somebody comes across this. You don't have rights to that. You're not going to play it. But Jerry Jones all but told these radio hosts that you're not going to ask me the tough questions. If you're not going to treat the interview like I want you to treat it, you'll be looking for another job. And basically said that he doesn't have to answer to anybody. When I talked about the fact that David Tepper is the worst owner in sports, Jerry Jones makes a compelling argument to be a strong 2, if not a 1A and 1B. Is it time to blow up the Cowboys again, Bill? He said he's not getting rid of Mike McCarthy, but the curse of Jimmy Johnson lives very strong here in 2024 with the Dallas Cowboys. Is it time to start all over?
You know, it's weird. Does starting all over include getting rid of Dak Prescott?
Yes.
Really? See,
I'm talking blowing it up. Find somebody who's willing to take on the contract of him, CeeDee Lamb, even Micah Parsons. Get rid of Mike McCarthy. I'm talking start all over from scratch. Blow up the team.
I'm a Dak Prescott fan. I like Dak Prescott.
I don't mind him.
Solid. I think he's a pretty solid quarterback. I can't figure out what the heck. So we had an argument at work before the season started. And I tried to make the argument that Dak Prescott, and I did make the argument that Dak Prescott is a very capable and very good quarterback, that Dak Prescott, if he continues the pace he was playing at last year, would be in the Hall of Fame. And I stand on that. I believe that, but he's not doing that this year. Last year, he was the second best quarterback QBR-wise. QBR, not passer rating, QBR, which is the overall grade of quarterbacks by ESPN. He was second to Brock Purdy. So he played fantastic and had a bad playoff game, which is kind of a Dallas quarterback thing, Romo to Dak Prescott. But he's not doing that this year. I don't know what's happening there in Dallas. I don't know if blowing it up and getting rid of him fixes that situation. I don't know what made it good last year. And they have no running game. They have no running game. And I wonder if
league and run, yeah.
You could just stack, bring in a whole bunch of coverage and you they can't run the ball. So I don't know, man. I don't think blowing it up is the right thing. I don't think getting rid of Dak is the right thing. I do think Dak is a capable quarterback, and I think you'd want to build your franchise around him. But you've got to continue to do the same thing that other teams do. That's what Miami did with Tua Tagovailoa, and they had the best offense in the league last year. They put weapons around him. They're not doing that with Dak. So all he's got is CD at this point. That's pretty much it. So what do you do? I mean, there are other receivers. Brandon Cooks, really, does this scare you? The guy's like 47 years old. Like he's not a scary guy anymore. So and Turpin, I think Turpin came out of the UFL or XFL, and these guys are not great, wide receivers. So I got to get them weapons, and I think that's what you need to do down there in Dallas.
I don't mean to turn this into a pro wrestling conversation, but there was the infamous. I don't say his name on the show either. There was Ahmed Beefcake is what his pseudonym on the show is. He once cut an infamous promo called the Pipe Bomb, where he talked about the fact that maybe the WWE would be fine once Vincent McMahon was dead. But until then, it would be run by his doofus son-in-law and his something daughter. Like it's an infamous promo. I'll tell you what his name is because I don't say his name on the show anymore. But he ran this promo. It was a work shoot, so it was meant to feel real. Even though it was a work to sort of draw the fans in to wonder, is this real or is this, as they say, kayfabe? I think we know what's going to happen when the Dallas Cowboys are going to be able to be a serviceable and workable football franchise. And that is the day after Jerry Jones passes away, because Jerry Jones cannot get out of his own way. He will never step down as the general manager and the owner. He's going to be the owner of the team until he dies. But he will never step away as general manager of the Dallas Cowboys. He will continue to make poor decisions. He said it on that radio show that he had that argument with earlier this week, that sometimes you make bad decisions and they turn into good things. And sometimes you make good decisions and they turn bad. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure Jerry Jones does either. Yeah. I feel like Jerry Jones, and again, I'm not going to get political here and tell you who I pull for politically because I really don't care about any of them. Jerry Jones is the NFL equivalent of Joe Biden. He is so old and senile that I don't think he knows where he is anymore. I saw the video of him walking into the locker room after that loss to the Lions, and it's him in a bunch of suits. Like it felt like the mafioso was walking to that locker room. They were going to lay down some plastic tarps, and we were never going to see Mike McCarthy again.
Wow!
But unfortunately,
being thrown around here. This is getting crazy.
Unfortunately, it doesn't matter if you blow up the team now, if you decide to make moves in the offseason. The Dallas Cowboys, and I'm going to say this here and now, and I will stand by this, and I will own it. And I don't know. You can come up with a punishment for me if I'm ever wrong. As long as Jerry Jones is acting general manager of the Dallas Cowboys will never, and The Rock means never, win a Super Bowl again. So I hope you've got those. I hope you didn't wear out those 1995, 1996 Dallas Cowboy tapes, because that's the only chance you're going to get to see the Super Bowl ring with the Dallas Cowboys for the foreseeable future.
The worst thing that ever happened to Jerry Jones is Jimmy Johnson, because it made him think that he knew football.
Yep.
His team won a Super Bowl because of Jimmy Johnson and how Jimmy Johnson built that team, and it made Jones think he knew football, and he does not. And they've been terrible ever since Jones left. I think Switzer won a Super Bowl with Jones's team. That's how good it was. Yeah. And Jerry's like, it's because I'm the only common denominator. Get out of here. You don't know football.
No, you're not. You're not. You're so dumb. All right. That's enough NFL news. Let's get into fantasy football. We got 10 minutes left to get to buys and sells, factor crap. And we've got some games to pick in podcast pick'ems. So let's go ahead and get into it. Bill, last week, you had a pretty good week against me here in the factor crap. I went 4-4 with my buy and sells, and he went 6-2 with your factor crap. It puts us at an even 29-19 apiece with our fantasy football predictions this year. So let's go ahead and get started here with the buys or sells. And this week, I'm buying quarterback Drake May. I mentioned him briefly earlier in the show. He's projected 18.3 points against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars spending their second week in London to play a London game. This is just a trial period before the Jags finally move out there.
No, they approved the stadium, $1 billion.
Yeah, and that's right. That's right. You did tell me that. Yeah, doesn't matter. They could still go.
I wonder if Shad Khan's going to rename himself to Sad Khan.
Oh, look at you.
Terrible.
With all the zingers tonight.
Terrible,
Bill,
terrible.
The Jags are still dead last against opposing quarterbacks in fantasy. Drake May, in his debut, as I try to pull up his numbers, and it won't pull up as quick as I want to, had a decent showing, albeit in a loss last week. Dropped a dime for his first career touchdown pass. You buy in or sell, or I'm sorry, is it factor crap with Drake May at 18.3 fantasy points, exceeding that point total?
265 yards, 3 picks, 2 interceptions, completion percentage of 58.5. Not fantastic, not terrible. Scored 27.25 points in that game in a loss. Like you said, the Jaguars stink with a capital STINK. And I think Drake probably can meet the 18-point projection here. This is I'm going to give you a fact on this one, Ryan.
I will take it because
Did I spell stink right?
Maybe.
That's a sad con right there.
It's a sad con. All right. The running back I'm buying this week. We're going to stay with this game, and we're going to go. We are going to go. There you go. Words are hard with Tank Bigsby of the Jacksonville Jaguars. No Travis Etienne in this game.
What just happened? We just went from Jacksonville stinks to we got to sell. We got to buy this guy. Let's buy this guy.
I'm buying him only. Well, his projection went up 2 points from when I started doing this. He was originally projected 11.4, but now he's projected 13.4. The Patriots, as bad as Jacksonville is, the Patriots are giving up the 5th most points to opposing running backs in fantasy. Again, Tank Bigsby has shown signs this season of being really good. He had a 25-point fantasy game 2 weeks ago. Again, it doesn't look like Etienne is going to play in this game, which is why Bigsby's projection has gone up, which is why I'm buying him this week. Bill, what say you? Factor crap that Tank Bigsby exceeds 13.4.
You know, honestly, the Patriots stink, especially against the run. Miami was able to run against them, and Miami can't run. So, yeah, I'm gonna give you a fact on this one too. I think with Bigsby as the feature back there in Jacksonville, that Jacksonville's. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. What happened to that offense? It doesn't make sense. It was decent last year. There's not much different there. I don't understand what's happening with that team. But, yeah, give me a fact on that one.
All right, let's go over to wide receiver. Let's talk about Zay Flowers from the Baltimore Ravens, projected 14.7 points at Tampa Bay, giving up the 4th most points to opposing wide receivers in fantasy this season. This is a Monday Night Football game. Listen, Zay Flowers, if you haven't been paying attention to the Baltimore offense outside of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers is the only guy really catching passes from Lamar Jackson right now.
Targets. Yeah.
Yeah. I love this play. Like, I don't know. I don't want to say I don't know where he came from, but like, I just didn't expect him to blow up like he is. And he continues to just ball out. So Bill, factor crap that he exceeds his 14.7 point projection.
I hate you for this one. This one's tough, man. This one's tough. Like you said, Monday night game. Baltimore's playing well. I think this is a low projection for Zay. I think, yes, he's getting massive amounts of targets. And yeah, I'm gonna go with the fact, Ryan. I can't bet against you on that one.
All right. That's the 3rd straight agreement. Let's see who this comment is from.
I know.
Bryson T says, "Go Fins."
Hey, that's what we're talking about over here. Wait, it's up here. There it is.
Over on YouTube. Appreciate you watching on YouTube. Let me see. Nobody else is watching on Instagram at this moment. So, all right. Let's go to the tight end that I'm buying this week. And this is probably a low-hanging fruit one. But we're going back to Jacksonville and going and buying tight end Evan Ingram. Projected 12 points. He came back from a hamstring injury last week. And as we all sort of predicted, he was the number 1 target for Trevor Lawrence. The Patriots ranked 15th against opposing tight ends in fantasy. So sort of middle of the pack here on the higher side. Again, the Sunday 9:30 a.m. kickoff over in London. Bill, what say you factor crap that tight end Evan Ingram exceeds these 12 points?
12 points for this guy, huh?
Yeah.
So Jacksonville's bad, right? We said they stink.
Yeah.
And you're buying 2 different Jacksonville Jaguars on offense?
Listen, Bryson, we're happy to have you. Listen, last week I sold Trevor Lawrence because he was projected like 18 points. And despite the fact that Jacksonville got beat and they played bad, he had 21 fantasy points. So, yeah, they're bad, but they're putting up fantasy numbers. So you got to sort of take that for what it's worth.
No,
listen, hold on.
I'm going to give you crap
scored,
on this one's crap.
Detroit scored 47 points last week, and the only people to score points were Amon-Ra caught a touchdown late. Sam Laporta caught 1 pass, but it was for a touchdown. David Montgomery was the guy in that offense last week. Now, Jared Goff had 31 points, but like the majority of the Lions didn't put up a lot of fantasy numbers despite 47 points on the board. Jacksonville's doing the opposite.
Crap.
You're crapping on Evan Ingram?
Crap.
I really
Take
thought
him
you were
away.
going to back that one.
Take him away, New England. That's all you got to do. They're a terrible team.
All right, let's go over to my sell portion of it since Bill finally disagreed with me on something. Let's go over to sell Sam Darnold of the Minnesota Vikings to 5-0
How are you doing
quarterback.
that? Oh, it's the opponent.
Shut up. No, legitimately, he's only projected 17.7, so it's already pretty low projection. I'm gonna put it to you this way. Every time Sam Darnold has had a hot start to his season, he comes back down to earth. He didn't play well 2 weeks ago. He is coming off of a bye week, and he's got a home game against the division rival Detroit Lions, who will take over the top spot if they get the win over the Vikings this week. The big thing here is that right now the Lions are giving up only the eighth fewest points to quarterbacks in fantasy. Now that I know there's no Aiden Hutchinson, but the secondary is still good. And despite the fact that Sam Darnold's off to a hot start, I don't see him exceeding 17.7. So, Bill, what say you? Factor crap, Sam Darnold the under on the 17.7.
I got bad news for you, Ryan. Wrong again.
Yeah, I knew it was coming.
This one's crap. The Lions are giving up the according to my league the 10th most points in the
10th most,
10th
10th
fewest. I'm sorry, 10th fewest points to quarterbacks in the league. However, that's because Dak Prescott laid a giant egg against them and only put up 5.5. Other than that, every other quarterback has scored higher than this projection. So I think Sam Darnold will do that again this week.
Listen, I hope that you're wrong for so many reasons. All right, let's go to the running.
We know
let's
why.
go to the,
You're just trying to will this one into existence.
Yes,
it's a manifestation.
Let's go to the running back here. I'm selling James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. He's projected 15.3 points. He is home against the Chargers. And the Chargers, albeit a bad team in and of themselves, ranked 6th against running backs in fantasy this season. Marvin Harrison Jr. got hurt last week for the Cardinals. I believe it was a concussion. With the way that they treat concussions these days, I don't expect him to play this week. With that being said, there's no other receivers on the Arizona Cardinals. And when there's no receivers to throw to, you're going to have to run the ball, and they're going to zone in on James Conner. I think he might have gotten banged up last week too. It doesn't matter. He's not going to score 15 points this week, Bill. Factor crap.
He's not on the injury list. He is not on the injury list, and it depends on what this team's going to do. I think that's kind of the big deal. They're playing the Chargers. Chargers are really good against the run. They were really good against the run against Denver, but that's because Denver stinks in pretty much all facets of football. And somehow win games every once in a while. Figure that one out. Man, this is a tough one. This is right on the ball. I think this is right on the line. By the way, did James Conner grow since he played in Pittsburgh?
Did he get taller?
Yeah,
you think
he
hit
looks
a growth
bigger
spurt?
in a Cardinals uniform. I don't understand it. I didn't think he was a big dude, and I saw him playing last week, and I was like, man,
probably because he's got a single-digit number on his jersey.
That might be what it is. He looks like narrower and taller. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's weird. I was like, that's a weird thing.
That's not the same James Conner that played in Pittsburgh.
It is.
That's what I'm saying. You were saying
the cancer. Wasn't he a cancer survivor?
I don't think so.
I thought he was.
Somebody else. It was somebody else. Anyway,
doesn't matter. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna fact this one. I think it's a fact. I think it's a fact because the Chargers are good against the run.
All right, let's go to my wide receiver I'm selling this week. I was wrong about this guy last week, but I think I'm right about him this week. Garrett Wilson projected 16.1 points against the Steelers, give up the 10th fewest points to opposing wide receivers. I think this is going to be a big Devontae Adams coming out game. I don't think he had a hamstring injury, or as we did earlier with the air quotes. I know everybody thinks this is going to open up the field for Garrett Wilson because he's not going to get paired up against cornerback ones. But I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to try to force feed Devontae Adams so hard in this game that he's going to forget Garrett Wilson is on this team for a week. which is why I'm selling Garrett Wilson. Bill, what say you? Factor crap under 16 points for Garrett Wilson.
I think that's crap. Give me
What are you
crap
gonna
on
say?
this one. I don't think Devontae Adams even knows the playbook yet. Come on. He's only been there a week. Come on. No.
It's Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers. He knows the
2
playbook
weeks
just
ago,
fine.
Garrett Wilson had 23 targets. 23, and he caught 13 passes. He's
he had a
literally
big day
force
last
feeding
week.
it. He's the only good player in that offense, other than maybe Breece Hall, but Breece Hall didn't even play that well. So, no, Garrett Wilson is still the star of that offense until Devontae Adams gets really familiar with the playbook.
All right, this one's going to be really low-hanging fruit as well, but I talked about Nick Chubb earlier in the show coming back from injury. They're talking about TJ Hawkinson potentially coming back this week against his former team, the Detroit Lions. He is projected 7.7 points. Even if he goes, I think that the Lions, you talk about being petty against a guy, against a team. They showed their pettiness against the Cowboys and ran up the score. I think they're going to do their everything if TJ Hawkinson plays in this game to take him out of this game. TJ Hawkinson under 7.7. The Lions also give up the fourth fewest points to opposing tight ends in fantasy, which is why I'm selling TJ Hawkinson. And for that matter, whatever tight end starts for the Minnesota Vikings isn't going to score more than 7.7 points. Bill, factor crap, TJ Hawkinson, 7.7.
I'm pretty sure Hawkinson's been ruled out.
No, they just haven't updated it because he was ruled out because he was on IR forever.
I know. It says Minnesota could realistically be targeting week 8 as the primary tentative date for Hawkinson's return. So that would be a week from now.
Then I would already have an automatic win then. Because right now,
so I'm gonna go with a fact on this one.
if I'm telling you right now, it's showing him with a projection on ESPN. If he was not going to play, then
they don't know what they're talking about. They should listen to us more often because we beat them generally. I mean, if you notice that, we've both beat projections every time.
Let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna make sure that I'm right on this because I'm applying filters here. So, yep, he's still projected. All right, you're saying
Still
fact
listed,
on the.
Yeah, I'm gonna say fact. I'm gonna go with that. There's no. I don't. He probably isn't gonna play. So.
All right. That's it for fantasy football buys and sells. Hopefully we help you with your fantasy game. We're running a little late, so we're going to zip through the picks this week, but hopefully our fantasy football talk will help you decide who to sit and start in your fantasy games this weekend. Bill, let's get into podcast pick'ems for week 8. Unfortunately, I had a pretty bad week. Worse than yours. You went 2-3. I went 1-4. So as of right now, I am 1 game up on you in podcast pick'ems at 16-19.
Terrible.
And you were 15-20. I don't know. Listen, there was one year where I was like 10 to 15 games above 500 in my picks. And the following year, I came crashing down. And it's just as, I don't know. Now, granted, we agreed on all the games last week. I never thought that I would go 1-4 this season. But we both
had a
had
5-0 week, Ryan. I had a 5-0 week. Other than that, I've gone 10-20. That's terrible. What is happening?
We had Ohio State that lost. We both took Ole Miss that lost. We
63%,
both had a good
Ryan, last year. I had 63% correct throughout the season.
Listen,
this year, terrible.
We both thought Seattle was going to put up a fight against San Francisco.
They were bad, yeah.
The only game that we were different on, because we both had the Lions beating the Cowboys that happened, but I thought the Commanders were going to keep it close with the Ravens, and they did. But the spread was 6.5, and they won by 7, and so that's the only difference. Otherwise, I go 2 games up.
I was watching the Seahawks 49ers game going, why did I pick the Seahawks? What was I thinking? Yeah,
same.
Terrible.
Same. Let's try to do better this week.
Yep.
Let's start off in college football over the SEC. Number 7, Alabama going on the road at Tennessee, number 11 in the country. At 3:30 kickoff on ABC in Neyland Stadium. Alabama, a 2.5-point favorite on the road. Bill, what say you? Tennessee hosting rival Alabama.
This is like the battle of the two teams that almost lost to subpar opponents last week. Like, this is odd. Wow. Who do you think is better? You know what? Alabama. I think Alabama, even on the road, they're a better team than I think Tennessee is. Not. I think South Carolina is a better team than Florida. And I think Florida playing at night in Knoxville, putting up a game and taking them to overtime shows more about Tennessee than South Carolina playing close with Alabama does. So I think Alabama's a better team. That's my guess.
I think that Alabama beat Georgia, and had the hangover that lost to Vanderbilt. And then I think they let that hangover take over, and they were looking past South Carolina to make sure they can come back and beat Tennessee because they have to win the big games if they're going to make the SEC championship game. And they almost overlooked another team to another loss.
Maybe they were both
Tennessee-
doing that.
Tennessee 2 weeks ago lost to an Arkansas team that they thought they shouldn't have lost to. And I think they perhaps hang over from that game and looking ahead to Alabama didn't play their best against Florida.
So similar trajectories.
I think Tennessee having this game at home is going to give them the edge. I like Tennessee to get the upset over Alabama.
Ooh.
Yeah. Probably going to bite me in the rear, but we shall see. Make sure we got nothing on Instagram. Nobody's over there. So cool. Let's keep going. Another big game, believe it or not, in the SEC. Number 5, Georgia goes on the road to take on number 1, Texas. It's a Saturday 7:30 kickoff on ABC, immediately following Alabama at Tennessee at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium in Austin, Texas. Number 1, Texas, a 4-point favorite over the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs, the one-loss Georgia Bulldogs, the one loss coming to Alabama. Bill, you picked first on the last game. Trey Toll says he's got Texas in this one. I don't know why. I heard somebody on the radio yesterday on my 3-hour drive home say that Texas was going to absolutely obliterate Georgia. I don't see that happening. I think Georgia somehow gets back on track. I don't say they win this game, but I think this is a field goal game, which means that Georgia covers. Give me Georgia to cover the spread, Bill. What say you?
Hook 'em horns, baby. This one's in the bag. This one, I think Texas actually shows us that they're that scary this week.
All right. So we're so far 2 for 2 on different picks. You got Alabama, Texas. I got Tennessee, Georgia. Let's go over.
I got the right
NFL.
one. The right correct picks is
Yeah.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Let's go over to the NFL slate. A Sunday 1 o'clock kickoff. 2 really good teams fighting to show that they deserve playoff talk. The Houston Texans on the road at the Green Bay Packers. 1 o'clock kickoff over on CBS. Check your local listings. The Packers, a 2.5-point favorite at home. Real quick before we move on, Jason Buck comes in. Georgia has a defense Texas has not seen yet. So I guess he's going with Georgia as well. Back to the Houston Texans. The Packers. Bill, what say you? Packers, 2.5-point favorite. Who you got?
I hate this game. This is not fair. Why would we pick this, Ryan? Texans are on a roll. Texans are on a roll. And I don't love the Packers. Oh man. Give me the Texans. Don't give me the I don't know, man. This one's tough.
I'll take the Texans.
Give me the Texans. Yeah.
I mean, if you know anything, the odds are more or less based on home games. So the home team normally gets 3 points anyway, and the Packers are getting 2.5, meaning that they're not even getting full home field advantage.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weapons on the Packers, but there's also a lot of weapons on the Texans. The problem is, I feel like I'm going to change my pick now. Nico Collins is on IR.
That's good. That means Tank Dell's going to play some good football.
Tank Dell.
Touchdown last week.
Joe Mixon came back last week. Mama Frick saying to go with the Packers. Yeah, give me the Texans, man. I'll take the Texans to win this game.
Yeah, I like Texans too.
Next up, probably the 2 best games of the weekend, in my opinion. Let's start off with the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. The one-loss Lions going on the road a week after shellacking the Dallas Cowboys take on the undefeated first place in the NFC North Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, a 2.5-point favorite. This is a Sunday kickoff on Fox. I'm happy about this being on Fox because, I think the Panthers play at 4 o'clock Sunday, which means that the Lions might be the prime time, the 1 o'clock game on the local Fox station. So, obviously you know what's happening here. I'm taking the Lions. Bill, what say you? Vikings, Lions.
Take the Lions as well. After what the Lions did to the Cowboys on the road last week, we'll watch the Lions do it again.
I just hope they find some pass rush without Aiden Hutchinson, and I can't wait to see if they can go make a trade for for Max Crosby. That would be obviously the wish list. All right, the final game we're picking this week is the Kansas City Chiefs at the San Francisco 49ers, a rematch of last year's Super Bowl that saw the Kansas City Chiefs win. The Niners are a 1.5-point home favorites. Sunday, 4:25 kickoff. It is America's Game of the Week over on Fox. Bill, what say you, Chiefs at Niners in a Super Bowl rematch from this past February?
I won't pick against the Chiefs until they lose. Give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, listen, still no Christian McCaffrey.
Mason got banged up too.
Yeah, Jordan Mason got hurt last week. But they saw the third string guy come in and not pull off a huge run and slide before he goes into the end zone so they can run the clock out instead of going up 2 scores in that game. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a more compelling argument to take San Francisco, but I mean, everybody's one bad snap away from going down, and I think that's Mama Frick back in the comments taking the Niners. Yep, of course. Got to go with my Packers and my 49ers because Mom has like 8 teams that she pulls for. Kidding, Mom. Love you. But
What
yeah,
a jerk. What a jerk. Says the guy who's wearing a Lions shirt but does a Carolina Panthers podcast.
Listen, Carolina Panthers are the home team, and I rooted for them in high school. I you know, the next time I come to hang out at your house, I'm bringing my senior yearbook, and you're going to see every picture in that yearbook where I'm in all my club pictures. I've got my Jake Delhomme Panthers jersey.
So maybe you should take off that sweatshirt then.
Maybe you should take off that face and stop talking. Kidding. Bill, we went long this week, man. Wait, hold on. Oh yeah, we're both taking the Chiefs. Anything in overtime that you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I'm good.
Oh, I'm good. All right. Well, I think
I don't have much. I mean, what do you say? I want to say, I hope people in North Carolina are recovering. I hope things are getting a little better up there. I still hear after the Hurricane Helene that things are still very awful, and that's terrible. So I think about that and see enough video of stuff like that too often. So I hope those people start to get a reprieve from the misery that is living up there right now.
Yeah, to your point, to your point, anybody that lives in this area knows what Ingles is. It's a grocery chain based out of Asheville, and their corporate warehouse, along with their distribution warehouse, have both taken heavy damage to the point where their distribution warehouse, the warehouse that they get groceries out to their stores, is still not operational. And they're having to seek help from other grocery chains to get groceries in those stores. And we're not talking like a Walmart that's a nationwide brand chain. We're not talking even Publix, based out of primarily Florida, but they've grown over the years. And they're dealing with their own thing with the last hurricane that came through and ravaged the state of Florida, Milton, that came through Florida. But it's to the point where I've talked to a lot of stores in my area that have picked up business because you can't find anything in English right now. And so when it comes to we think about business, you don't want to think about businesses in a time like this. You want to think about the people and that lost their homes and their family members and stuff like that. But a local grocery chain like Ingles that services the upstate South Carolina and Western North Carolina, you don't know how they're going to make it at this point. And that's a lot of jobs. At the end of the day, that's jobs that people aren't going to have going forward. And you continue to see people that lose houses. There was a store that's I think somebody told me a small convenience store, family run for years, that's not there anymore. To your point, please continue to give what you can to the area of Western North Carolina, the Asheville area. There are some places that are opening back up, but they're still talking about highways, I-40 being shut down potentially until 2028. So people that want to go see family in Tennessee from the state of South and North Carolina are going to have to take 3-hour detours to see people in Tennessee and to take their trips and stuff like that. So, that's a good reminder, Bill, because it's still not taken care of. There's still people up there. They still don't have running water in most of Western North Carolina. Their main water line, 200 yards of it were washed away, and so they're still trying to find like water to drink, and there's no running. They can't bathe. They can't clean. They can't do anything.
No.
So
and we're about to go into winter here, and these people are sleeping on their porches or sleeping outside. They're in tents. It's going to get really bad here. And I mean,
Yeah,
if you have
we're-
anything to donate, anything warm, blankets, sweatshirts, I mean, they really need that stuff right now. It's
Yeah.
sad, it's a sad situation.
My mom told me that it snowed up in the mountains today, and we're under a frost. What is it? A frost?
Yeah.
What's the word?
Advisory. Frost advisory tonight. Yeah.
For 2 a.m. and it's going to be in the 80s by the weekend. So yeah.
I turned on my
it's-
heat today, and I'm going to turn my air on this weekend.
Yeah, hard pass. I'm not doing either. So, but yeah, no. Continued prayers and thoughts go out to the people of Western North Carolina because it's going to be a long time before things get back to normal for them. For everything else, I guess to get back on a happier note, I'm not sure how to do that out of transition there.
Sorry.
Thanks, Bill.
Sorry.
Thanks to everybody who was a part of the show tonight, be it Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. Yannick, if you come back and finish watching the rest of the show somewhere, thanks for coming in. I haven't seen you in a long time. Former member of the Yan crew. You'll get that, hopefully. If you want to find the show where you didn't watch it tonight, make sure you go and follow the show over on Facebook.com/tapouts and touchdowns, over on X at tapouts and TDs, YouTube at tapouts and touchdowns, and on Instagram you can find me at Ryan Frick Comedy as Bill tries to find out where he's pointing right here.
That's that one.
Where you can follow the show. I did not post part 2 of the Vince McMahon documentary recap. That will come this Monday. I'm scheduling that to go live tonight. It will go on Monday. It is a podcast only. So whether you get it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you can get your audio podcasts, that will be available Monday. And then we will be back next week to talk more football as NFL and college football season rolls on. So until next time, thank you everybody who was part of the show, wherever you commented. There's too many people to get to. Thanks everybody for being here. For Baker Bill, it's your guy Bully Rye, and we'll see you next time right here on Tap House and Touchdowns.